During this year's CitizenCon, we got our first glimpse at how planets are going to evolve in Star Citizen thanks to the arrival of Genesis, also known as Planet Tech V5, coming next year. With this technology, planets in Star Citizen are set to become the most realistic and breathtaking worlds ever seen in any space game. The first of these will be Nyx I, which is expected to debut in a Nyx system sometime in 2026. However, the introduction of Nyx I could also bring some familiar challenges, the kind we've already witnessed with the rollout of the Pyro system. In this video, we'll take a closer look at those potential issues and explore a few possible solutions or workarounds that CIG could implement to make the transition a little smoother. Alright, let's talk right away about the elephant in the room, because this is going to be the main theme of this video, and that is the lore. Nyx I, just like Pyro before it, is about to break the lore that CIG has been building since the very beginning of Star Citizen's open development. Originally, Nyx I was described as a coreless and barren world, far too close to its star to be within the habitable zone. But from what we have seen during CitizenCon, it now seems to be a lush paradise filled with vegetation, thriving biomes, and even signs of life, which completely contradicts everything CIG has previously told us about the system. To be honest, I found this retcon quite troubling, because it's not the first time CIG has done this with their own lore. Pyro, for instance, was meant to be barren, inhospitable, and deadly, and yet it is now filled with outposts, settlements, and regions where people can live somewhat comfortably, far from the reach of civilization. The issue here is that in the early days of development, CIG told us that they were working with physicists and astronomers to make sure the universe of Star Citizen would feel as scientifically grounded as possible. But what we are getting now are planets full of life in places where life simply could not exist in reality. From a gaming perspective, I can understand that choice here because, of course, this seems way more visually appealing and inviting. But for those of us who bought into the project because we were told it would be all about immersion and believability, it is honestly quite disappointing. Speaking of placing that new Genesis planet in Nyx, I think CIG is making another mistake here. Wouldn't it have made more sense to keep Nyx I the way it originally was meant to be and introduce the system with Nyx II, which is basically going to be a mix between Ariel and Aberdeen on the larger scale, and Nyx III, a blue-colored gas giant? That approach would have allowed the Nyx system to be completed much faster, while the new hero planet we saw at CitizenCon could have become Cascom, the second planet of the Castra system, home to the landing zone of Sherman. Of course, I understand that Sherman is not ready yet and still needs significant development time. However, since CIG seems to be returning to iteration-based releases, they could have introduced Castra early without Sherman and added the city later, similar to how they brought Microtech into the Persistent universe before adding New Babbage. Now that the lore is about to change again, this raises the question of how far this retcon will go. Nyx is known to be an unclaimed system, which brings up a very important question. If Nyx I is going to be such a lush and hospitable world, why hasn't the UEE or any other power claimed it? We know that the People's Alliance is the main faction operating in this system, yet they continue to live on the semi-derelict asteroid base of Levski. So, why wouldn't they move to Nyx I if such a welcoming world is just within their reach? This is where things start to get interesting. It is possible that Nyx I, even though it appears full of life, might not actually be hospitable to humans. Remember, the planet is supposed to orbit too close to its star to be within the habitable zone. Radiation levels could therefore be dangerously high, making the surface unsafe for long-term exposure and preventing large-scale colonization. Another possibility is that Nyx I could be home to dangerous wildlife that keeps settlers away. CIG recently introduced those plasma-breathing Yormendi in ASD facilities, and it is entirely possible that the planet could be infested with a natural, non-enhanced variant of the same species. These creatures might not be as formidable as their laboratory counterparts, but they could still pose a serious threat, enough to make any colonization effort unprofitable. A final explanation could involve the UEE placing Nyx I under the protection of the Fair Chance Act, a law in Star Citizen's lore that forbids interference with planets inhabited by potentially sentient species. If one of the life forms of Nyx I showed signs of higher intelligence, that could explain why the People's Alliance, despite being independent from the UEE, chose not to settle there to avoid provoking a conflict with the Empire. In the end, while Genesis or Planetech V5 marks an incredible leap forward for Star Citizen's visuals, it also reminds us of the delicate balance between technological ambition and narrative consistency. As beautiful as Nyx I looks, it symbolizes a growing tension within the project between the promise of scientific realism and the temptation to create something more cinematic and marketable. If CIG manages to justify these changes within the lore, perhaps through environmental hazards, alien species, or the Fair Chance Act, then this new version of Nyx could become one of the most fascinating and mysterious worlds in the game. But if the change remains unexplained, it risks alienating players who value the coherent and believable universe that Star Citizen was originally meant to be. Whatever happens, Nyx I will set the tone for the next generations of planets in Star Citizen. It will show us not only what CIG can achieve technically, but also what we should be expecting for the future of the game. As always, I would love to hear what you think about all of this. Do you welcome this new vision of Nyx, or perhaps you feel, like me, that something is being lost in the process? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. That is all for today. Once again, thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day. A big shout out to my Patreon members and YouTube members, including Dr. Frobin, Sokarta, Sisters, Ducky to the Crusher, the Rise, and Zero Crusher. I have been Radin. I will see you guys in the next one.